Welcome
Welcome.
to That's Not Important
Not,
Right
not that
Now.
that's not important right now. What?
Get off my show, Jared.
Are you kidding me? Why would you want me to leave your show? You
When
know
I
it's what it's.
when I say welcome, the next thing
Yeah.
out of my face is,
Yeah.
but that's not important right now.
But that's not
Jared,
important right now. Yes, I know.
Jared,
You would think
I will,
what? You think?
I will do an Alec Baldwin on you, Jared.
Oh shit! No, don't say that.
Too
You want to
soon?
do?
Too
It's
soon?
too soon. Yes, it's too soon. What is wrong? Good lord.
Well, thank you for joining us. We
Thank you. Thank you for
apologize
being.
for that
Yes.
that last comment.
That yes,
Person,
please.
the person in question has been beaten to death, and now he's
Oh,
been
good
replaced
lord.
by the actual. He's been replaced by the actual person. Welcome
Yes.
to the show. Just to say that we had a blast this week.
Oh,
with
we had
our
show
show.
We had fun.
With Damien Saint Bernard. If you have
Yes.
not seen, if you're not
Or
listening
heard
to
it.
the Halloween special, it will
Yeah.
be out on Wednesday this week because this is on a Monday. It will be out on Wednesday on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and subscribe there. And if you're like some of our lame people, Stefan, who only want to listen to Stefan on YouTube, Stefan, then you could go on YouTube and listen to us. But I delay it, so
Yes.
get our followers
And
to listen to
if
it.
and if you subscribe, send some money for us too, because we really need as much financial input as possible. If you
Yeah.
want to, that is. Yeah.
Daddy needs a
But
new
it's very
pay of
important.
everything.
And we do. We do.
Daddy
I need a new pair of underwear. It's starting to look like a cobweb, and I need to do something about that. So yeah. What?
Well, thank you for joining us. Today we've got our wonderful friend, copywriter extraordinaire,
Special
award-winning,
guest star.
awesome, recurring guest, Tracy Jonathan Hutchings
Huzzah!
of
Tracy.
We Are Tracy.
Tracy.
Tracy, we're missing a slap you down. When is the next a slap you down? I'm waiting for it. When is the next one, Tracy?
The next one will happen soon. I took a hiatus because I said to myself, I can't keep ranting every week. Surely Trinidad can be different. And I was wrong. So it's like I can't keep ranting every week. I'm gonna just take a no. So yeah,
Tracy, you need to do the countdown at the end of the year. The 10 things we will slap down for.
Want to slap people for? Yes.
I don't know what will be number one.
That would be.
I think you should put it out.
That is one long ass list, boy.
You should put it to a vote. What's the 10 things? You know, and then I would put my vote in as the number one thing to be that needs somebody who needed a slap down was Gary Griffith. But anyway, that's not important right now.
No, that's not.
There.
That's another story for another time. Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to talk about. Okay, so in today's episode, we're going to talk about, because of the Halloween specials, kind of a sparked off an idea of something that we should talk about, which is not culture, because you talked about that. The culture of working in an agency, but the things that make working in an agency before and now different, and various other things. But before we get to that, one of the things I wanted to mention is in this recent brouhaha, I'm not going to go into detail of it, it's in the news, where our Trinidad and Tobago Police Service had a lot of hirings that were questionable, because there are a lot of people who are hired to do various things. And then the list broke out, and then the names broke out. And one of the names was last on the list is a friend of mine.
Right.
I'm not going to put his name, but I can tell you he's an awesome guy, great person, totally awesome, love him to death. But I never saw him in that position, in the sense of working, being hired to do that job. And he's being paid to do that job. And I'm like, how the hell could I get that job? I want that job. I could do that job. But he got the job and he was working at the job. And I'm like, you're getting paid that amount of money to do that job. And basically, the job was social media management, just handling Facebook pages. And I'm like, that's a job? People actually get paid for that? I want to do that. So,
Yeah,
so,
people want to
so,
know
Yeah, I mean,
that you're
heck, I
protecting and
could
serving with pride.
exactly. That's what you're doing,
all right. So I just
I
wanted
think
to
we all
mention that as moving so that we segue into our subject matter today is that the roles and responsibilities of somebody being hired to do something. So in an agency situation, you would hire a consultant. You know, the famous consultants. We had mentioned
Oh
it.
God.
I think Damien had mentioned it in the last episode where there was a consultant that was brought in to talk. Well, not to talk, but to kind of figure out where the problems lay with the workflow of the agency. And so go and listen to our Halloween episode. It's mentioned in there. Um, but the fact that they had to bring in this consultant, and we always have these consultants coming in. Tracy, I don't remember. Do you remember any time a consultant being hired to come in and kind of coach or tell people how to do their job or whatever it was, or hanging around and observing you? Did you ever have that experience?
Not at the agency or the university that I left the agency for. To be honest with you, no. I've never. Now that I think about it, the agency never really. There was never really like someone who was brought in to help manage or do anything of the sort. Like we all kind of knew our role, and our role was to make this award winning. Is this ad award winning?
Check mark. Check
So,
mark. Check mark.
oh Lord, I just had a flashback.
that was no, in all honesty, I was young and I really wanted, like, if I'm being really honest, I wanted to fly out and go and work for London. So I was keen on making sure that every ad was both selling and award winning. Whether or not it did either is a different story. But no, we didn't have. It was weird because like the culture back then in advertising in general, it had its murdery streaks, it had its loudness, it had its senses of doom. But at the same point in time, people generally seemed to either A, knew what they were about in the different roles that they had, or B, it was kind of one person pulling another person. So you didn't necessarily need an external consultant to come and tell the agency this is the way, like the Mandalorian. It wasn't that kind of thing. Like I could remember, a couple of my colleagues, like they would be there to say, yeah, this is how it works. This is not how it works. Hey, you know what? Maybe you need to settle down a little bit more. You can't go jumping off the walls. There was always that somebody there that you could bounce stuff off of. And even the infamous Friday afternoon drinks, that was a way to just sort of get everybody to detox and reset for the next week that was coming. So we didn't have a consultant coming in. It's more on the client side. The client would hire a consultant to change their brand and put 6 sticks in their logo, but not from an agency like.
Yeah, because the funny story is at the agency, the creative director, who we love to talk about without naming his name, he left.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no creative director. We didn't have a creative director.
Right.
There was nobody. And then he came back as a consultant. You see, and it was huh?
No, I was just going to say that's actually the name of my new single that's coming out. It's called Consultant. So just plugging that there one thing.
Are you going to sing a couple of bars for us?
Oh God, no. But it's in Latin, so.
Okay. So
okay,
he came back as a consultant. And it was just a way of the agency bringing him back in as if nothing happened. He was away for a year.
Okay.
And there's a whole story related to that. But the point is that a lot of things happened, and now he's back as the creative director. So we had a couple of times where we brought in people from the New York office because we were an international agency. We had people from the New York office come and try to go through. Well, one it was the best ways to have a brainstorm, or what is we had a thing called demand chain, and all of us had to come in on a Saturday and do this thing called a demand chain, which is teaching us how to produce demand and create demand and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, it was fun because you got somebody with from another office or whatever with some additional experience coming in and re-energizing you and making you feel that you had that you were learning something new, but there were times where we brought in consultants who just sat down and I don't know what they did. They just didn't do anything. They didn't tell you anything. They didn't say anything. It's like Office Space. When the guy says, "Oh, you see those two guys? They're here to fire you." You know. So yeah. I mean, the thing is about the office culture that we talked about in the Halloween episode that came out in one of the stories was that when I had started in the company, there was a lot of attempts to try to make you feel that you were part of a family.
Right.
Right? And you knew that was BS, but it still felt nice in a way because you didn't think that you were alone. You didn't think that you were alone. And what you said earlier, Tracy, is that you had people who you could count on to kind of help you. So like if you didn't know, there's a famous, well not famous, there's a well-known meme that goes around LinkedIn ever so often where they show this guy with a flamethrower and the headline is from the old guy to the new guy. You're not really supposed to do this, but this is what I do. The guys with a flamethrower, right? So it's like that. You come in not knowing or knowing very little about what you need to do and learning on the job and figuring it out. And what happens is you just keep your mouth shut and you do the work that you're assigned to do, and you kind of keep your head down and when you're asked your opinion, you give your opinion. I don't know what it's like now, because before we started the show, we said that Jared and I have been out of that particular situation for so long that we don't know if now, when you bring in something new, somebody new, what happens is it that I have a story actually where one of our friends, he worked in the art department with us. He's in the same age group as Jared and myself. He got a job with us. I wouldn't call it a small agency, but they tend to think small in the sense that they're not a big conglomerate and they have very small, small office, small people, not small people. We're not talking about Oompa Loompas. We're not Oompa Loompas working for the company. Anyway, so what happened was one of our other friends who work with us at the agency said, "Hey, great, you came to work here. Great, awesome. Well, this is all the work we need to do." He's like, "Yeah, but I need to know what the processes are and what." He's like, "Okay, don't worry. Somebody will show you what to do." And it all fell apart because it turned out after 6 months, he was there floundering. What was described to me was that he literally drowned. He quit because he drowned because nobody was there. Nobody was telling him what your workflow is like, who you're supposed to answer to. Nobody told him anything. They just threw him in there and said, "Oh, you had 15 years at the agency, this big international agency. You should know everything already."
And therein lies the problem. Lies the problem. There's two things. One, funny enough, as you're talking there, Reed, I remember my first real pitch to one of your favorite clients. The short white lady from the food brand, and and I had
Oh
to come
boy.
up with a
Oh
and I had to
boy.
come
Yeah.
up with
Yeah.
I had to come up with a campaign.
We've all been through there. We've all experienced that. We've all
we
experienced
we've
that.
all had to do that.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
the heights case for me was with like the hilarity for me was I sat there, I got the brief. Errol came and dropped the job ticket, and I had the brief, and I wrote out the thing, and then I remember it was you and Craig and a couple other people, and there you all sat there and listened to me pitch you the ideas because there was like about four of them, and then we figured out which one that she might actually like, and then it went to layout. Shit like that, no, you got sorry, stuff like that doesn't exactly happen anymore. You have, especially if you're bringing somebody, because what agencies want now, they're looking for new blood, yes, but also who has time to train. That's the general thinking. Who has time to train? So you quote unquote need somebody who can hit the ground running, quote unquote, which means that even if you have had 15, 20, 6, 9 years in advertising, especially with like an agency that supposedly has pedigree or something, there's no real time to say, this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is what creativity is to us and what it means and all that kind of stuff. You either glean that along the way or not. And it's kind of sad to hear about your friend who was drowning in it, because that's really not how it is. But then I think about agency life now. The most you will have is somebody who will take them by the hand or whatever, and say, all right, this department, this is so and so person, and this department, this is so and so person. But there's no actual this is who we are kind of conversation unless you have that in the interview. Good luck.
It's never been that kind of when I started, because I genuinely, legitimately got my start in advertising in 2004. And this is before I would go and join up with the agency, because I was working in an agency where the parent company happened to be the agency, and we did things exactly, and we did things just a little bit different. The problem with that was that we were dealing with a very stern taskmaster, and it didn't exactly afford any kind of room for, shall we say, hijinks in terms of loosening up and actually getting something going, because it was the objective was to do it now, to get it done, to get it out, to make sure that the client, once the stern taskmaster liked it, fine. Then he would have to take it and pitch it to the client. Once the client liked it, excellent. We were good. I think the one time that, and this is something that has stayed with me indelibly, was that when the agency that I was working at the time, they were in danger of losing a really, really huge client. It was one of their bigger clients, and all because the hero of the piece, and I use that word very loosely, was involved in a heated argument with the guy who owned the fast food franchise, because it was for a fast food franchise. And I remember listening to the entire conversation. It was a one-sided conversation, and there were a lot of let's just say that the guy used a lot of industrial language. Kind of long story short.
Fish market language.
Well, I have heard fish market vendors cuss in my native Caranage, and the kind of words that were used, that I tell you, they made my ears burn. And I've been listening to that kind of stuff all my life. But anyway, so we were in danger of losing the client because of what had happened, and so we were working feverishly trying to make sure, pitching ideas, and we had a creative director. We had a creative director who was he was a cool dude. I mean, he would listen to what we had to offer. He would pitch it to the stern taskmaster. He liked it, and then we were working well into the night, and it was a semblance of the kind of old school culture to which we had grown accustomed, and which I mean, for the first time I'd experienced it. I heard about it because I've heard stories of people who were working in advertising before. This is what it's supposed to be like, you know. And we submitted it, and then about a week later, um, he lost. We lost the bid to keep the fast food joint, and it went to another client, and it was just, we were despondent. The only upside behind all of that was that we got to go home early, and none of us lost our jobs, thank God. So yeah, that was back in early '05, as I recall. But yeah, I mean, we still had that same kind of, but we didn't know. I didn't know when I joined up with the agency in '07. I didn't know that this was going to be like for it wasn't going to last. It wasn't going to last for long, because then we had consultants, and then we had focus groups, that kind of stuff, and the creative process. I think, as haphazard as it wasn't regimented, but at the same time, the one element that was there, at least when I started working there, the one element that was there was that we still had an element of fun, and that is something that you can't just manufacture it. You can't just it's because if you force people to have fun, you're not the creative process is not going to flow. It's not going to flow as freely as one would like it to, and that's something that
Yeah.
we've lost sight of.
Yeah,
Anyway.
again, Tracy, I don't know what it's like now when it comes to doing
Well, I
like
can
a
tell you it's not
brainstorm
fun.
session.
It's not fun. Let's start there. Advertising has
Is it not
stopped being
fun where you are, or is it not fun, you think, overall? Because you're not the only person who has said this, that we have reached a stage now where, and it comes back to one of the things that I have said, the reason why the agency business is dying, or basically on its last legs. And there are people who will fight tooth and nail into the death and say, I don't agree with that. Great, you don't agree with that, awesome. But the thing is, the reason I say it is because the algorithm has taken over to such a point where there is no need for some of the high thinking creative that we're doing. And it's sad because you still need it. But nobody's willing to pay for it. So nobody's willing to pay for Tracy, Jared, and Ian to sit down in a room with Ozma and Ronald and whoever and come up with a campaign from scratch. They already have a data set that they've gotten from Facebook. They say a smiling woman holding keys in front of the car gives us the most clicks. Give me that. That's what we want. So that whole brainstorm session you all just did, I'm not paying for that.
So here's the thing. Two things. Let's start with the latter. There was a brand that I worked on that two of them that we would make the joke of, they don't necessarily have to do ads. They could do a black and white ad that says still in stock, and people will go after it, because there were two brands that Trillies genuinely love. They really didn't need to say anything really. That being said, we still managed to fight in some cases and sell the idea of that same high creative concept, the thought process of, yes, this is what be able to change their minds to some degree, so that yes, this is what Facebook says may work, or before Facebook, this is what your focus group says would work. But we also want to push it a little bit more and show you that there's a way to connect with the audience, and so on, so on, so on, so. And that was part of the fun. that was part of the fun because the brainstorming and like a brainstorm session could go anywhere between an hour and 3 hours or something along those lines, with people sitting down there on strange chairs saying, "Oh my God, why this won't end so I can go back to my desk." But and that's a real thing. But it was the fun. It was the fun of, we're going inside that room and we're going to pitch them something that maybe their research or their Facebook messaging or their focus group says that's not the way to do it, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it differently, or we're going to expand on it because the brand can take it. There's not that anymore, and it's not just one place. It's clients have. I've noticed two things with clients coming back into the agency life in 2015, because for 2 years, 2013 to 2015, I was basically my own boss. I was freelancing and I was doing stuff like that. But when you have like mortgage and whatever, you want a little more steadiness. So, and I came back in agency life in 15, and I realized that what was happening is the threats that we would hear in the background of clients back in the day, the things of like, well, I can find somebody else to do it. Or my nephew could probably do that. Or like our favorite client, Ian, one of them, who said that this ad came from the belly of the organization. You remember that? The Jack and Jill ad? The Beanstalk ad, and it came from the belly of the organization. Now, the belly of the organization is a real thing, and agencies don't want to lose out to, especially if you're still the agency of record. How ridiculous would it be if you're the agency of record for water brand X and they've gone to their niece, nephew, or internal graphic and copy team and do the most waste of time thing? Not only are you not getting the money for it, not only do you lose respect from your colleagues who know, wait a minute, doesn't Ian run that brand? It becomes this whole scene of, we need the money and let's just do what the client says. And that has become more prominent. And the fun aspect of it, challenging clients, saying to them, this is what needs to happen. This is what the brand can take, or just flat out, you're wrong. And being brave about it. It's no longer, it's no longer there. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to shut up in about a minute, but let me throw this out. I remember working on a cracker brand, and me and my friend, who up to this day I still call her the Sun God, we had created this radio ad that had rock music and something else, and it was nice. It was great. It was a beautiful jingle, and the client didn't like it because, according to their quote unquote research and stuff, people within the East-West corridor, you have to use small syllables and all kind of BS. And we said, no, that's not going to be a real thing. And she stood up and said, listen, we will stake our salary on it. And we said, we will stake our salary on it for this month. You need to go and put that ad. And they put the ad, and it was fine. There was a challenge. Now, I quite enjoy having my salary, but we put the challenge out there on the table as to just to show the client, you are wrong. We will be brave in what we're saying, because it's not creative masturbation. We actually knew what it is that we wanted to put out there. And I'm afraid. I'm genuinely, well, maybe not afraid, but I'm genuinely worried that because I hear stories in other places and stuff, and I hear the word factory being used, and I hear, the idea of even brainstorming processes, has lost its savor, it's lost its valor. And you look at it and you say to yourself, what has become of the industry that, to be quite honest with you, I loved or still love in some days? What has become of it?
Jared, do you want to jump in and say
here's something that because earlier Hutch had spoken about a particular lady who had her hands in this particular food brand. And I remember that, and here's the thing, we tend to say particular things about our creative director, but this is one time but the thing about it, I wasn't even there, but we were. This is the story I heard. It was this particular. It had something to do with crab and callaloo, and I think the art director at the time, what she had done, God bless her, she's an amazing lady. Really, she is an amazing woman, young woman. What she did was that she took the packaging, I think, and she fashioned it in such a way that it looked like an actual crab.
Mm-hmm.
And when they presented it to the other lady, she didn't like it at all. To her, it was like taking a blind man to see a view. And the creative director at the time was like, "But don't you see it? That's what it's supposed to be." And he was so ticked off, and I don't blame him for it. He was so ticked off that he wanted to have absolutely nothing to do with this particular individual again, because
Yeah, he did, and he did, huh? He
and
never
he
went back
did,
to a meeting after
and
that.
he never
He
went back
never
to a
went
meeting
back to a
after that.
meeting after that.
Never
He
did.
used to send
And the
everybody
thing,
else.
right? And the thing about it is that she believed in it, and the ad ran,
Right.
and everyone to a man and woman looked at that ad and said, "This is excellent. This is beautiful."
Yeah.
And you remember it,
Yeah.
but the creative process behind it. It is a creative process behind it. Sometimes when you are in the thick of it, when you are going into a brainstorming session, which more often than not can be a bit of a brain drizzle, and then there are times when you're just there, and you know what you start to do? You start to punch ugly. What do I mean by that? When you start to punch ugly, you can come out with the most outlandish concept there is. You could talk a heaping set of gobar, aka shit, as much as you can. And there you are thinking, well, okay, but when you go through the shit, you actually find a diamond. And you look at that diamond and you think, wait a minute, this could mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And you work on that, because that's how the creative process, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
You can look at it as as a kind of like an extended lime. And for those of you non-trainees out there, if you don't know what the meaning of the word lime, it's how we hang out. Lime is another way of saying, hey, you want to hang out? That's what we did. It was a hanging out session. So we were just talking. And then all of a sudden, somebody says something or somebody does something. Somebody makes a reference to a particular movie. Somebody talks about the lyrics of a song. And that is how it starts.
Mm-hmm.
That is about as organic as it can get.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty. That is the beauty of it. Because all of a sudden, it sets off a chain reaction of someone saying, "Hey, and we can do this." Yes, and then somebody who's dealing with graphics can say, "We can do that." Somebody somebody dealing with art direction can say, "Yeah, and we can make it look like this, and we can add some color to that." The copywriter can look at it and say, "Hey, we can come up with this key turn of phrase, and we can do that, and we can." And then, and you know what also happens too is that there's a cross pollination of the copywriter could suggest to the art director that maybe you can add a little bit of color to this, or maybe the art director can look at the copywriter and say, maybe you could use this, maybe you could say this instead of that, and
Don't
that
even get me
kind
started
of
on that life. Because Master J, listen, I remember
Tell me.
that you're talking about there. I have experienced that for a great deal of my 20 years in this industry, where there is that banter. Even when I left the agency and I went to what I call the university, that other place, you'd have that. Sometimes I don't even know what the hell what I'm writing, but I just have a line and I say it to the designer, this is the word that's in my head. And then some brilliant people will go back. And then I came across, for a time, I came across a strange land where I was told, artists don't read, and you have to spell out things for them. And my favorite is we waited on the copy. Well, I sent you a headline and a theme. I don't know what the body copy is. Put some space for the rest of them.
The new art director. Well, I even call them art directors. The new graphic artists now, they don't work like that. I have noticed that it's reached a stage now. There's a whole discussion about where the industry is now, and I've taught graphic artists. I've taught them for at least 5 years, so I know what's out there now, and I can tell you that I could count on my hand the artists that I taught that I would put my head on a block and say I could trust them to do good work if I gave them an idea, which is like you said. I say, okay, it's fire, and they would take the brief of the product or whatever it is, and come back with a man on fire or something, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm feeling that. Yeah. But 90% of the people working in agencies, working in the industry, working as freelancers or whoever, you give them this thing and they go, yeah, nah, I need all the copy, I need this tagline, I don't read the brief, so you need to and then they give you back something that anybody could do. And one of the things that I had an issue 2 weeks ago with a client, and I was trying to explain to her, and I said, your company is uniquely positioned to beat out of everybody else, because you have a great website, you have an awesome product range, you do social media really well. The only thing that you need to do is you need to establish the brand as being separate. And she's like, yes, I know, I understand that, and can you help me and whatever? And I say, sure, no problem. If you pay me, I will supply you with the graphics that you need to do what you need to do. Pay me to do it and I'll do it. No, well, I don't think I could do that. I want to do it myself and whatever. And what she ends up doing is what the competitors are doing. She just looks at what the competitor does and then she does it. Now, that leads me on to something similar. My friend Jamila Bannister, Jamila, awesome brand guru, brand maven. Jamila, if you're listening, hi Jamila.
Hi Jamila.
Jamila had cause to message a company. Well, she didn't message. She went into a store that sells a certain kind of skin conditioner. It's not makeup. And only this store in the whole of Trinidad apparently sells this thing. So immediately it's the only place that has it. So this is, a big deal. So she went there and she said, well, why don't you, tell people about this, The woman's like, well, oh no. She said, well, aren't you on Instagram? I don't even know this company. Aren't you on Instagram? She's like, yeah, I'm on Instagram. So when Jamila went to the Instagram, she realized the Instagram page was locked. She's like, why is your Instagram page locked? She said, I don't like people who I don't know on my Instagram business page. So I only add the people who I know. She said, but why? So because the competitors used to thief my graphics and use it on their pages. So I said to Jamila, Jamila, do you know why? She said, well, why? I said, because these people, this girl, this person selling this product, does not understand why a brand is a brand. You think that you've bought a Jordans, but instead of the Jordan person flying, it's a Jordan person flying without a leg or something. Obviously, it's a knockoff. It's a knockoff because Jordan has established his brand. I'm telling my client, you have a look, you have a logo, you have a brand. You need to start using that. because when you just post a generic photo of a product, obviously a competition is going to take that and start selling that product too.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
So locking your Instagram profile is just making it worse. You need to sit down. So Jamila said, well, if I sit down with you and I work with you and whatever, I don't know what came out of that conversation, but if I were the business owner, it's the same thing that George Lois said in Art and Copy, that wonderful documentary. George Lois says, and it's a quote that I love. I stick it up on my wall. I have to drag these people kicking and screaming to make money. I have to drag them into doing the work. And Ralph Lauren said, he said, shit, this man made me successful. And it made me work harder. He made me the man that I am by putting up these billboards in Times Square, whatever. I was scared out of my mind that I could not live up to this image that George Ross had created for me. And then I ended up doing it. So the thing about it is that people don't understand what the idea, what the art direction, what the whole creative concept around a brand or product that you're selling can do for you. Because it sets you apart from your competition. Your competition cannot say, because Jamila said, your competition don't have this product. You need to be shouting this from the rooftops that you have this product. You could sell this product alone and make money to pay rent for the store. So on a side note, interestingly enough, if you go and search for Sasha Cosmetics foundation, I think it's a special kind of foundation, on Amazon, it has the highest review of any other. Are we talking about Revlon? We're talking about MAC. We're talking about all the other big brands of the world. Sasha Cosmetics has the best reviewed, and this is not fake reviews. This is actual people around the world saying this is the best foundation they have ever used. And that comes from us.
Yeah.
That comes from us. And I don't know why people are not saying or shouting about this. Why is Sasha not making a big deal out of this? Obviously, because probably they have to keep up with demand. Because that's the next thing. You start selling too much, you run out of product. People are going to get vexed and say, So there's always a balance to check. I always remember a client saying at the agency that this campaign is too successful. We have to pull it. That same we can't run this campaign anymore. We killed it. The campaign killed not kill the product in the sense that nobody wanted to buy it. That we sold it out, and we have to wait to get more. So there are a host of other reasons, other things, that why a client would be reticent for wanting to put their neck out, and there are a host of things with this particular market. And one of the main things is that everything is a virtual monopoly. I mean, B-Mobile does its thing, and then Digicel does its thing, and so we go forever and ever and ever. We'll just do the same things.
I wouldn't say forever, because the way I figure it, if we want to get biblical, to everything there is a season and a purpose under heaven. Yeah, and I would put my neck on a chopping block, and I would say that the time is going to come when we're going to look back on this, and we're going to ask ourselves, well, not you, me, or Hutch, but people are going to ask themselves, where did we go wrong in terms of coming up with a product that we could sell and do it in such a way that we make the product interesting, that we make it fun, that we make it relatable? Where did we just say, you know what, we're gonna just abdicate our responsibilities, our collective responsibilities as people in advertising, and just leave it to the client, and the client has the final say? we don't have that kind of culture anymore. That kind of creative process. We're willing to put our salaries on the line. We're willing to put our reputations on the line as seasoned ad men and women and say, hey, you know what? I think you're full of crap. I think that what we have here is good. Stand by that. You just wait and see. And it takes a lot to stick your neck out and say that, huh? It does.
Of course. And I know a few people who to this day, who I know are of that ilk, for whatever better way of putting it, who will continue to say, okay, there's some battles. Well, all right, I'll just do whatever.
Yeah,
but
you got to pick
also,
your battles. You have to pick your battles.
but you also know, it's like, no, this is where we stand, because this is right. This is the way to go. So like, I feel like there are some people there, definitely us as one of them, who would put it out there and say, hey,
trust our instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Trust our instincts. We have an instinct. Trust our instincts.
And this is the hilarity. This is the hilarity that I find, because up to what it was, I was thinking, if you want a secretary or someone to just dictate, or someone that you can just dictate to, then by all means hire a secretary and or someone to dictate to. When you've brought in an agency or a creative professional on the whole, what you are saying is you want a collaborator, you want a business partner in a broad sense, who is bringing their expertise to the table. Now, I may not know how to balance a sales sheet. That's not my area. You have a sales team for that. But my area is to maybe sit down and talk to the sales team and see why things are selling or not selling, and then organize and come up with a thought process that maybe you may not be 100% comfortable with, but at the same point in time, it is where your brand can go. It's a corner, a crevice, a spot that your brand can actually slide through and then make a difference in the thing. If you don't want that, then by all means, go hire a secretary to just re-scribble what you have in your brain. What's the point?
For example, Ian, you pointed out a while ago about Sasha Cosmetics and how the product is so universally liked, and how come we don't have. I mean, we could talk about a couple of other products right now that has caused a bit of a stir. Like, for example, we could talk about a particular chocolate brand, a local chocolate brand that's been around for years. And I think earlier this year they launched a new product called Mocha, which is a coffee flavored chocolate. Now, there are those who love it. In fact, I could say that there are more people who actually love it than those who don't. And I'm thinking, word of mouth is fine, but what do we do to elevate the profile of that product even more? What could we do? What could we come up with? I mean, there are so many possibilities that that have just gone a begging, and we just don't. We have potentially, you have a great product that could do even more, and we're not thinking, we're not asking ourselves, well, how do we, and the prospective clients themselves, I don't think they were very fortunate in that they have a quality product, like capturing lightning in a bottle. They had a quality product, but okay, what's the next step? What do you do now? And this is where, and I know this is not exactly what I love about old school advertising, especially if you're looking back on how the really older heads used to do it back in the glory days of the 1950s and 60s in Madison Avenue, especially as it related to tobacco products, to cigarettes and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same product. But the thing about it was they had to come up with different ways and means to sell it. Are you talking about a cigarette with a better filter? Are you talking about cigarette boxes that are crush proof or waterproof? How about something that has less tar and nicotine, or something that has a kind of menthol fresh taste? Anything. Is it something that the doctors because there was a time I know I'm going a bit off the rails here, but there was a time when doctors and lawyers preferred a particular brand of cigarette, and they decided to focus it on that. And I'm thinking, why can't, since if we are to subscribe to the maxim that everything old is new again,
Right.
why can't we just say, hey, we have a chocolate here. We think it's a great product. How do we go about doing that? Who have a focus group? Who likes this the most? Is it women? Well, let's see if we can have something that will be relatable to women, and find out what we can do with that. Things like that, little things like that, and come up with that kind of creative concept that could be mutually beneficial, not just for the client, but for the agency responsible for the marketing of that product.
Yeah. I saw an interesting documentary. This is to lead on from what you said, and to kind of not underscore, but maybe kind of challenge it.
Okay.
I saw a documentary called, what was the name of it? It was on YouTube. It's not a documentary. It's a YouTube guy. He posted a very interesting half-hour opinion op-ed.
I saw the first 15 minutes of it. I know what you're talking about.
I'm worried about humanity's future, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's about technology, right? And where we are and where we're going, right? And one of the things he said is the quote unquote, what do you call it, rabbit hole, when Alice falls down the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole is what you fall down when you're in YouTube and or on Facebook or Instagram, you just keep scrolling. You kind of fall into this kind of theme. You click on one video and suddenly you're presented with a whole set of related videos like it. So you're now surrounded. You become the castle, and all these different things are surrounded you, and they're all saying the same thing. And very soon you are convinced that this is the way, is right. To quote the Mandalorian, this is the way. So if you click on one video to find out about, vaccine problems with vaccines or whatever it is,
right,
you suddenly get covered over by, and I keep telling people this happened to me when Facebook first came out. I went down that rabbit hole. I didn't call it the rabbit hole then, but that's what it does, where I was reading stuff from not Jenna Jameson, that's not her name. What was the girl's name? You laugh because you know who that is. No, her child was autistic and she said it was the vaccine.
Jenny McCarthy.
Jenny McCarthy. And I started reading Jenny McCarthy. Her stuff, her blogs online. Yes. And I suddenly got convinced that vaccines were bad for my child. And like I told people on Facebook, I said the only reason that I got snapped out of that stupidness was that my friend is a doctor. And she said, yeah, if I could cuff you through the phone, I will. because what you're doing is you're going in the face of years of research,
right,
by a woman who spent most of her life naked. So what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah,
she's like, it's a boob. It's the boobs, isn't it? It's her breasts, right?
That's why.
That's why your brain got disengaged, right?
Oh, I guess
right.
Stupid.
So,
and I shouldn't talk.
Right. So this guy, to come back to Mr. Who's the boss? I'm worried about humanity's future. He made a very good point that all a brand has to do is position itself very much in your face. So like you search for best running shoe, and Nike comes up when you search best running shoe, and suddenly you fall down this rabbit hole where the best running shoe will always be Nike. And no matter what you do, no matter what you do as the Adidas brand person, you cannot convince person who's already, and that actually is what we are. That's the holy grail of advertising. That's what we've always been taught. And our managing director used to say, you have to make people love your brand like Coca-Cola. It becomes like a religion. And I'm like, I don't think I like that, but that's the philosophy.
Or
And the
supporting the
philosophy
political party,
coming
but that's another story.
to come back to your cigarettes thing. The cigarettes thing was that eventually it became known that obviously cigarettes is bad for you. And the reason we can't go back, and this is where I'm going to challenge it a little bit, is that the reason we can't go back to what we were doing before is because people have learned, in a way, to to not trust advertising. So now advertising isn't what you put on a press ad isn't being trusted. It's what an influencer says it is. So, for example, if an influencer says, "Hey, I go in and smoke this cigarette and make people want to smoke cigarettes again," the platform is going to say, you're out. Can't do that. So there are things that you cannot do on the platforms. You cannot advertise vapes. You can't advertise cigarettes. You can't advertise anything to do with CBD. There are things that you cannot do on these platforms that stop advertisers from being advertisers to do those things. But where does it stop? You can't. The influencer, this girl could go and show herself half naked drinking something from Hennessy or something, and people will just and you fall down that rabbit hole. So you start looking for this model because she's sexy, and you start following her, and suddenly Hennessy is always in your brain. And that's
how different. But Ian, how different? Yeah, but how different is that? How different is that from the black and white ad that came out in the early 1980s on television? How different is that?
I think it took time to generate that momentum in those days. It took its time. You take months, 6 months, it kept going. It took years. Now it's I wouldn't say it's almost instantaneous, but the whole thing that came out with Facebook and the algorithm and all that with the leak, the whistleblower, is that the algorithm has made it so easy that you have people, committing genocide.
Whoa.
And this is the difference. It is mass movements. It's mass movements based on it's mob movements. That's why I'm completely totally against.
Fickle, eh?
Yeah, but that's why I'm against this whole cancel culture thing. Because you can't be judge, jury, and executioner on a social media post. That's not your purpose in life. You don't go and say this person must be totally ruined because I didn't like what they said. That's ridiculous. Anyway, we digress. That's not important right now.
That's not important right now.
The heights for me, though, in terms of because we're talking about influencers, and one of the things that is in my brain is like we've always had influencers telling us what it is and how it works. The difference is that one, the title, and two, because back then what you would call them brand spokespersons. So you would see that same black and white ad, for example, and I'm hearing the music playing in my head. That's never a good thing. That you would see her, and she would become the brand spokesperson for black and white. So like whenever you see the poster, or you might just be passing and you might see the billboard, or from the time even the music, you have an association between the initial strum of the guitar and the female who is there.
Amy Jones.
The fact that you know this, oh my god! and so she becomes the spokesperson for the brand. To this day, the tattle people are people lady. That is one of those people who, that if I I don't, forgive me, I don't even know if she's around, but like if I saw
she's in
her,
Germany. She's in Germany now.
There you go. That is the people who are people that those are the brand spokespersons. I remember there was this lady called Pearl. Pearl used to like there was a whole campaign for about a year or something or more with Pearl talking about Breeze. And Pearl was, nice, motherly Rasta. She had her Rasta braids, and
Sort
she
of
would
the
sit down on
kind
her
of
yeah, and she would sit down there on the stoop, and what you got was actual real stories about Breeze, and then they used Pearl for different other things. But she became the brand spokesperson. It's the same thing that we have now with the influencers. My problem is that because up to recently, I had a conversation with a client, and it was like, "Oh, well, we have these brand ambassadors, we have these influencers on, for want of a better way of putting it, on a payroll, so we could probably use them." And I asked the client, I said, "How, what was the process of coming up with these people for this particular brand? Like, what exactly is it about the person? Is it the fact that they just have 12,000 followers with an ever-growing platform? Was that your reason? Was that your sole reason for it? Or is there something about their personality that you see coincides with the brand?" And I got a kind of a very flaccid response to that. And I was like, I can't be asked. And that is where we are modern wise in terms of the idea of the brand influencer, of the influencer, and how that has monopolized how brands or clients or brand managers or whoever deals with the idea of how they push their product. It's always been there, but it's just gotten more pronounced. And I feel to something that Reed was saying a little earlier, I would say, even if he doesn't say it, I would say it's more instantaneous because, I go up on Instagram now and I see somebody, I see an influencer pushing a brand. I'm going to immediately go after it, or I, will just follow their account because reasons. It is more immediate.
But if it's more immediate, okay, does that run the risk? You're asking for instant gratification in terms of getting the message across.
Mm-hmm.
Could it not translate as well that for some reason, if you fall out of love with the product, or if you fall out of love with the influencer, you may want to switch to some other product, or just because you may not like the influencer.
Because what do you do? Because the brand doesn't have, and then again, I bring back the idea of being brave. It is quite possible that the brand itself, or the brand keepers, of which we, the agency people, are part of the brand keepers, brand managers, a brand keeper, may not necessarily be brave enough in their own product. So let's say that does happen. Let's say tomorrow morning, a particular songstress whose name will remain silent, but everybody associates her with like high-pitched voice. Let's say that songstress gets up tomorrow morning and says, "I don't trust vaccines," or something, I don't know, whatever, and falls out of the good graces of the general public. Every time, because she's on billboards, she has her own social media presence, etc. Every time I see that brand, or I see her in relations to the alcohol, maybe I'll just be like, meh. Or, I might walk away, or I might just say, well, I'm actually just here for the product. I'm not really here for her, so she could go jump in a lake for all I care. If it is, however, that because the brand is so tightly wrapped around her that it's almost a symbiotic relationship, it lends itself to, and don't get me wrong, they've been relatively successful, but it does lend itself to what happens if something goes afoul. Can your brand survive that? Could you not have stood on your own because your product that you have is actually pretty good, and it's a very sociable product. You don't necessarily need a hototo of influencers like said songstress to push the brand. What happens if something happens where we all fall out of love with her? It's not just going to be a matter of, well, this person no longer represents the brand. It's too late. I've already associated your brand with that person.
There
Tough.
you go. There we go. There it is. There it is right
I
there.
don't know. I think that is definitely again coming into a very deep discussion, very deep cut discussion about the state of advertising now. But and I think we've gone fairly far in today's session. But what I want to say to summarize, to kind of draw everything back to what we started with, is that in the agency, there will always hesitancy. And whoever's listening to us, if you're listening to us from Timbuktu, you've had experience where a client has said no because they were afraid of doing it, right? The thing is, now there's even so much more things to provide hesitancy. The analysis paralysis, the no, I don't think so, or no, I don't have money for that, or are you insane, J. Jonah Jameson? Are you serious? Kind of laugh and then say, are you serious? That is more now with the technology, because the clients, one, they've been exposed to the technology on their own, and they think they know. Two, they've got somebody telling them. Yeah, and two, somebody. You see, in the beginning, the agencies, it was a mystery. What happened with the agencies? You used to come in for a meeting and get presented an idea. You didn't know what was going on in the background. You didn't have a clue. You just knew that they were coming back with something wow. You were going to get wowed. Now they are flipping through blogs and they're reading things and they go in and they're doing their research and they're going to get their masters in marketing, and they're coming back and they're telling you, nah, the research tell me that I got and the algorithms, and you there, but what about this great idea that it's checkbox, it's award-winning, checkbox, it's going to make people share it, checkbox, it's going to make sales go up, and they're like, no, that's not what our research is telling us, so just let's go with black ad with sale now with a Starburst or whatever the hell crap they came up with, and you just go back in your cubicle and the morale becomes low and the agency starts to feel like this kind of prison and factory or whatever, and you feel that you're not doing your utmost best. Now, I've been reading books on Google advertising. And the first thing about Google advertising, this guy said for display ads, is just get a graphic designer to do the ad for you. And I wanted to throw the book because it's an insult to me. But I could see where he's coming from. You don't need to do Google advertising. You don't need all of this stuff, what they call stuff. You see? So it's a harder sell for an agency. It's a harder sell for an agency to come and tell you, well, we spent 12 hours and came up with this awesome idea, and that's going to cost you $20,000 even before they even start the campaign. They're gonna look at you like you're nuts. Yeah, somebody asked me if I could do a social media campaign for them for $500. I'm like, what? Yeah, you need to come up with the graphics of it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. They're like, well, sorry, and I'm like, but the thing about it is that they said, well, you have the contract for the year. I'm like, so what? Anyway, this has been a great discussion. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
We're always glad that you come back.
I'm going to go back and watch Bold and Beautiful, so enjoy yourself.
But to come back, we really, 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 really want you to do that. The 5 most things that we want to slap you down for.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely.
You do that for January. You do that for December 31st. We actually, Jared, that leads us to a good idea. We need to do something because we're coming down to the end of the year. We need to do something before we go off on break. What would be the 5 top stories of our podcast?
In the ad world?
No, of our podcast. What would be the 5? We need to figure that one out. So you need to start listening to all our podcasts and tell me. That's your job.
Good Lord. Really? Okay, well.
From season 1 to season 2. This is episode 11. We're going to be going up quite a bit till the end of this month of November. So I hope you guys come back and join us. Jared, you want to define what it is we talked about today?
Okay, yes.
What
Let's
are we
define
defining
something.
today?
What we're defining today. What is the creative process as we know it to be?
I don't know, Jared. What is the creative process as we know it to be?
Yeah.
The creative process involves a lot of hand wringing, shit talking, hoping to get an idea that would become marketable, and at the same time have a kernel of creative integrity, which can grow into something that could be a potentially lucrative and award-winning campaign. But that's not important
right now.
Right now.
Damn it. Damn it.
Y'all
Good
just
night,
nice.
guys. Have a
safe,
good
guys.
week, everyone. Thank you
Be
for
well,
Have a good
listening.
week.
All right. See you all later.
See you later.
Bye.
All right.